This is Cheche, the show where opinion counts. Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Hussein Mohammed sitting in for Odua Kamimo. Almost 4 weeks since the anti-IBC protests began, it seems there's no solution to the crisis. The executive, the opposition and the commission, that is the IBC, all sticking to their hardline positions. And every Monday, protests that seem to be getting violent and more violent are being condemned. 4 people have now died, with the police accused of brutality and using too much force, and the protesters on the other hand also being accused of excesses, including looting and generally going beyond the limits of peaceful protests, that is according to the authorities. Again we ask, which way forward? In studio, police spokesman Charles Owino, the executive director of the Kenya Human Rights Commission, George Kigoro, and our resident panelists Mutegi Njao and David Makali. Talk to us on 22422 or on Twitter using the hashtag Cheche. And I'll start by asking them to give us a general assessment of what has been happening. I'll start with David Makali.
Well, Hussein, I think what is at issue here is our different interpretations of the Constitution. What is picketing? What is peaceful assembly? And what is reasonable force in dispersing a gathering? In my view, I think all of us are wrong and all of us are right. Article 37 gives everybody a right to peaceably assemble. But does peaceful assembly mean you can carry your arms and put them here and remain peaceful? Or does it mean you cannot carry your tools of protection and come to a meeting? And in the event of such an assembly, what should police do? Should they disperse or assist you to remain peaceful in your protest or picketing? And what we have seen in the past is that the police have figured out that if you assemble and you become rowdy, then that is not peaceful.
Yeah. Or
if they think that there is potential that you might cause problems, as crowds often run out of control and therefore be disruptive of peace and the others, then they disperse you before you even assemble. Which again, in my view, is police exceeding their mandate under the Constitution. But I also think that the citizens have abused, in the current protests against IBC, their rights within the Article 37 of peaceful assembly. Because in certain cases, crowds of people who are demonstrating have actually incited police by beginning aggressive action such as throwing stones, as well as disturbing the environment where they're holding those protests.
Okay, Mutegi, who is wrong? Or is anybody who's wrong?
When we've seen protests before, we have seen protests all over the world where police cordon off and the people protest and do whatever they want to do, and they are pushed. No guns are used at all. They use water or use blanks. They don't shoot to kill. Nobody ever killed in demonstrations elsewhere, except in this country, or maybe in Africa. So it is possible to hold peaceful demonstrations. We have seen them, but what we are seeing in this country is that they are not peaceful. Like the guy who was being beaten by the police, who was being kicked, in his pocket you could see a stone. What was the stone intended for? Although he claimed he was not part of the demonstration, but you could see a stone in his pocket when he was being beaten. So we are both right and wrong, as Makali says.
That justified the beating then? If he had that stone, you say.
What was it for? Are you telling me that you throw a stone to me if I'm a policeman, I just start there to receive your stone?
Let me get George's response on that.
I think let's start at the higher political level. I think what's going on currently shows there is a significant dysfunction in our politics. The fact that you can't get the governing party and the opposition to have a shared view on how the country should be going. We've had since 2014 at least a demand by the opposition for a structured dialogue about certain issues that they feel need to be talked about on a collective basis. That was rejected at the time, and then I think it is what bred the opposition's attempt to do their Core Kenya movement. That was also then put off because the IBC did not approve the signatures, and so the opposition now is looking for another channel, and that channel has been what we've seen recently in the streets, them saying that we've got to get rid of the IBC. I think inherent in that is, in all those attempts that have so far failed, is an attempt to make the point that there is something that they feel important enough to bring everybody together into an extraordinary discussion. That is their perspective. And the perspective of the government, on the other hand, is there is nothing wrong with this country. All problems we face are the ordinary problems that need only the ordinary institutional solutions. So there is a differing of views about just how bad the situation in the country is. Now, what that has done, what their responses by going to the streets have done is they've created a new layer of disagreement, where now we are talking about whether or not the police have behaved in the manner that they should, whether or not the opposition in their decision to resort to protest, whether that is reasonable or not. So that is where the disagreement currently is, but it is characterized by what we have had since 2013, which is, it is very rare nowadays, except when we are congratulating our rugby teams or our athletes, there is almost nothing about which any two Kenyans agree about nowadays. That just shows how polarized we are as a country.
So what do you think of the conduct of the police over the last 3 weeks?
Okay, as I've just said, there is nothing we agree about as a country, but let me give my views. There is no doubt in my mind that the conduct of the police has been far beyond what is expected of a responsible, law-abiding force. There's no doubt in my mind that excessive force has been used in quelling the protests. There's no doubt in my mind that criminality has been evident in the conduct of the police, and that some accountability is necessary for that to be put to rest.
But you don't agree, or do you agree?
You know, first of all, ask me the question. I know you want to attack me.
No, there's nothing like attacking you. But yesterday, we saw you coming out and saying police had to do what they had to do, and especially with what happened in Siaya and Kisumu counties.
What I said is very clear. And one, we are officers of the law. We are supposed to enforce all laws and regulations of the land. And most importantly, we have a responsibility to protect lives. We don't celebrate any life lost, not even in a road accident, border rider. We don't celebrate any lost life lost. Many a times we are put to task why people have lost their lives. And that means that we can also not celebrate life that has been lost through the gun that a police officer has shot anyone. It is not to our interest to lose any Kenyan. It is to our interest to protect lives and properties of Kenyans. And that is why when we were almost getting overrun with terror, we had to come up very strongly and get support from both the public and the government to deal with terrorists in the manner that they have been dealt with, and we have continued working together as a team. The problem that is there is that I think we are over-politicizing situations. But I wanted to be very honest. For your information, this riot affects where I'm born. These people who died, some of them are my cousins, my brothers. And I cannot be part of the persons who would celebrate their death. But I have to come out very clearly and explain the situation. There's a big lie that some people have tried to tell the youths, that those guns police carry, they don't carry live ammunitions. It is a lie. There's no way Mutegi utabeba bunduki kama kuni. Bunduki must always be protected. No, it's honest. I cannot pretend to be in the street here with firearms which do not have live ammunitions. So as we go to a riot, we go to a riot to protect the other persons that may not be participating in that riot, and including the rioters themselves. And there are procedures for everything that we do. There have been several riots in this country, and we've never killed anyone. Now, what happens is that there is a procedure for everything that we do, and there's a procedure for everything that is done on public meetings and demonstrations. As they have put it, every Kenyan has a right to demonstrate, to picket. But in that right, you must do it peacefully, and you must not be armed. We must respect that. We must be civil to that extent. Equally, under the Bills of Rights, it is very clear that there are limitations. As you enjoy your rights and fundamental freedoms, you must not prejudice the rights and freedoms of others. Let us start with the first day when the demonstration was called for. The opposition leaders said they were going to eject the chairman of the Electoral Commission from office. That is not lawful. In that statement alone makes that intention unlawful. Unless I belong to another world, that makes it unlawful. And in the first place, to be very honest, we ought not even to have allowed them to go to the street. As much as they have the right, they have limits. Equally,
is there anything like them notifying you in the first place? Forget about what happened.
You see, there's what we call naturally. Public order is natural. There must be order in everything that we do. We have always undergone through the process of notifications. The reasons why you notify the police is very simple. So that if you have a rival group, the police would also be able to contain your rival group. Today, it is true that we have the opposition and we have the ruling party. They are rivals. And we must contain both. What happens in a situation? Just a minute. What happens? Just give me time, because I'm the one to be hit, and I'm the one who has the responsibility to protect all of you. It is a mandate that you have given me, and I must also take responsibility where I am wrong. But it's important to know my position and what we do. What happens is that we have the opposition who are trying to form the next government, and there is the ruling party who are also trying to remain in their position. So definitely they are rivals. You see, there are situations where rioters may come in good faith, but hooligans may also join. How do you manage the situation where people are looting, people are destroying property and doing other things? But I know where the biggest bone of contention is the use of firearm by a police officer. Number one, police officers must restrain themselves to use of firearm as a last resort. But don't be cheated that the police can never use firearm. It is very clear in law that there are there are justifiable circumstances when police officers may use their firearm. And the most justifiable circumstance is protection of life. And in protection of life as a policeman, you start with yourself.
Okay. Give me an instance in Siaya. What happened? Why did they have to use live ammunition?
Fine, there will be definitely an inquiry into cause of that death. So just a minute.
So now you don't know?
No, I'll explain. But I also want to be professional in what I tell you. There will be an inquiry definitely. When life is lost, and he knows, Kegoro knows that when life is lost in a circumstance that you think somebody has committed a crime, for example, the officer who killed is being accused for having killed him unlawfully, then an inquiry into the cause of death is carried out. And it is established whether the officer was justified to have caused death or not. And you see, as a matter of fact, we are very lucky as a country that currently we have an independent oversight authority led by Mr. Macharia Njeru. And I think every Kenyan should be questioning him how fast he's going to go about his inquiry to establish whether that officer was justified or not. As a man who speaks for the police service, I must be very careful on what I say, so that I don't demoralize police officers, and then tomorrow they sit aside, houses are burned, and people are killed.
My question is, you've been justifying what happened, but you're telling us you still don't know what happened in Siaya. You're going to give us a
What I've said is, and what I'm justifying is, that it is true that police officers can use a firearm in a riot, and you can be shot. Are you saying if life is threatened? And I want you to get that. You are a very brilliant man.
If life is threatened, yes. But you don't know what happened in Siaya. We still don't know what happened.
No, we are leaving it open.
But let's look at not just use of firearms, excessive force, which is more prevalent than the use of firearms.
In law,
such as we saw at law Avenue.
Yes.
The brutality.
He knows very well, and he may be able to confirm this, that when you talk about force, use of force, to what extent is force justified? Force is managed by the force from the opponent. Yes. If you come with a panga, I cannot kneel down and raise my hand. We'll and tell you, come and cut me.
Are you saying that justifiable use of force, the one that has been broadcast broadly?
What I can
will show those pictures.
What I can tell you, I'm not in a point of inquiry. What I'm saying is...
We don't want to deal with theory also.
No, we are not doing
pictures are before us.
I'm very...
And we want to relate to that situation.
That is what we're talking about. If you're saying you're using force depending on how a person is retaliating...
Yes.
How do you explain this?
Was that threat?
Yes, excuse me. And I want us to be... I want us to be Kenyans and nationalists.
Yeah.
What happens as a police officer? All police officers are trained. And unlike military, police officers don't take collective responsibility. We take individual responsibility. When you are sent to work, you can't work professionally the way you have been trained. And if you don't work professionally, and what you can learn from this is you should be asking the Independent Oversight Authority, how far have they gone with their inquiry? If there are officers indicted for having not acted professionally...
But I'm surprised. I mean, don't you have internal police disciplinary action? You have to wait to be investigated by the Oversight Authority.
We have
so what we are looking at is your own measures, leave alone the external measures to check you, but internally... Has action been...
As I speak to you,
yes,
the Director of Internal Affairs has been mandated by the Inspector General to investigate all the riot actions on each and every day that we have undertaken, and I think he's going to do a report.
Let's boil it down, Mr. Wino.
Yes.
Was this reasonable force, and was it justifiable? I mean, this is a matter that is there for everybody to judge. How would you explain that?
Let me explain to you.
Yeah.
Reasonable force is determined by the force that you get. For example, in the case of Siaya, look at it. In the case of Siaya, if you look at it, people are throwing stones at police officers. And I think we should not encourage a situation where people do not respect the police.
Agreed.
Let the police make their mistake.
That is fair enough. And we are also going to interrogate whether these people have been going beyond the limits. But what I've been asking you, what Makali has been asking you, is was this use of force justifiable? Can you justify the use of force over the last 3 weeks?
It depends on the circumstance, on what happened at that particular time.
But the pictures, the pictures you've shown me, for instance, you're telling us it depends with the force the police is receiving.
Let's talk about one specific case.
Yes.
The guy who was sleeping.
Yes.
He was lying down. He was beaten by 3 policemen.
Yes.
Until one of them came and saw sense and pulled the other one up.
Yes.
When you are sleeping down there, why would the policeman want to help you and whip you?
That is unreasonable. That is a specific case of a justifiable and reasonable force. Because once you have subdued a person,
he's down there,
and he's down there, you ought to remove him. But you see, what you must understand, my brother, is that in every market they have their own madman.
Oh, so this is...
Are you getting me? Okay. And what I'm saying is, we must agree as a country. How many policemen do we have? If you have 1 or 2 cases,
Makali, I agree with what
Makali,
but
we have
let's also agree.
No, never. Don't demoralize police officers.
We're not,
If you have 1 or 2 cases where you think an officer is wrong, the person who is mandated to do that ought to take action against the officer.
I wanted to ask you a general
question. Not blanket condemnation.
True. I wanted to ask you, now let's broaden it a little. I mean, these demonstrations have happened over the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
Each of those instances is very well known to you as chief of police, spokesman of police. You definitely are aware of the circumstances because these questions will come to you.
Yes.
You can actually almost narrate each of the instances what happened. The first demonstration, the second demonstration, the third one which happened last week, and the circumstances. If you look at all those cases, did you find anything that was excessive among the demonstrators or those who are picketing? And in the case of the police response, did you find the police exceeded their mandate also or use of their response means? Just an analysis that captures this thing. So we're not too theoretical because we're dealing with.
I'm not theoretical. My position is very clear. Number one, we are dealing with a very uncivil society. We are not civil, even in ourselves. The manner in which we are carrying out ourselves and we are doing things, it's not civil at all. There are instances where you can see individual police officers have made mistakes. For example, the guy who had lied down and was beaten. We have even cases where some women were allegedly removed from the toilet and clobbered. That cannot be accepted. And it is not acceptable. And I can tell you from where the Inspector General sits, you see, everything that happens, everything that has a cause has a purpose. And this has happened very early, even before we reach the level of elections. And this has fortunately given us an opportunity to manage the situations that they are supposed to do and do our correct briefings and manage the situations. But my take is, yes, individual police officers who make mistakes will be dealt with. And that would be a lesson to any other police officer that would be coming in to manage
so you agree that there were instances of use of force?
Okay. That is true.
Okay. Let me get Kegoro. I mean, he's been fully silent.
Okay. Let me just make this point. I think one problem is the leadership of the police service seems to be saying it has a responsibility only to the police service, and what we hear Mr. Wino saying here repeatedly is that the only thing they are concerned about is not to demoralize police officers. So he says basically that by holding police officers accountable for their misconduct, it amounts to demoralizing police officers. Allowing police officers to go out there and break people's necks.
You are wrong, Mr. Kegoro. I want just to
no. You gave you time. You gave you time. No. I can't agree.
No, I can't agree. What he's saying, no.
You will respond.
Excuse me, Mohammed. I can't allow that to continue
because you've been talking for. You've been talking for the last 10 minutes.
He cannot say that we are not holding police to accountable. That is wrong. What I'm saying is, we have institutions that hold police accountable. The Internal Affairs Unit and the Independent Police Oversight Authority, they have a role to play. As a police spokesperson, who speaks for police, I cannot demoralize my other colleagues.
That's fine.
Excuse me, my other colleagues who are doing the right job.
Fair enough.
If we do that, the police will sit aside. The rioters will clobber you. They'll kill people. They'll steal property.
We will interrogate all that.
Give him time.
In fact, he
said that you are concerned about demoralizing.
He said he don't want officers to account, which is wrong.
But he didn't finish his point. Let him finish his point, then you'll respond.
I'm not thick.
Nobody's saying your thing. Just take it easy. Nobody's saying your thing. Let him finish his point. Then you will respond. Go on, Mr. Kegoro.
I guess I cannot speak without Mr. Wino interrupting me.
Yeah, please. I will allow you now to speak.
Thank you very much. Okay, the point I was going to make is this: that the leadership of the police seems to be concerned only for the fact that the police should not be demoralized. In the way that responses to what has been patent misconduct on their part, very clearly captured on television, is handled. What is coming through the concern within the police service is that accountability against police officers amounts to or can lead to a situation where the police officers are demoralized. What I would like to say is that the police service should have a balanced view about things that we've all witnessed and which have a huge implication on how the public views the police. On the one hand, the public would like to trust the police. The only way to trust the police is if the public knows that the police are also accountable. So there should be a message, a strong message from the police to the effect that the police, like all of us, are accountable. If a police officer breaks the law, even if it is in the process of stopping other law-breaking endeavors, the police are equally accountable. So that is a message that needs to come out strongly from the police, but it has not come out that way. It comes out sort of saying, because these are lawbreakers, any means we use, even if not themselves particularly lawful, should be understood. So I think that is one big problem. So the police should be assuring the public.
We'll interrogate the other side.
You are misleading the public.
Then secondly, there should be transparency in how that accountability is carried out against the police officers, because beyond what we see, or that so and so was killed in Tiaya, we never hear that story. The police never come back to tell you this is how that story ended. So the public never knows whether actually there was seriousness and a follow through to ensure that accountability was actually carried out. And that is what in totality also then means that if the police do whatever they do, it is never known whether or not action was ever taken as promised when things were still hot.
And just to buttress that point, which is really important. If you look at the action, the lawbreaker who is caught, such as happened in the previous demonstrations, the next day they are charged in court, so we know the consequences or the sanctions that follow their illegal actions. On the other side, the officer who exceeded his mandate or did wrong, unlawful things, you don't see what becomes of it. So we're just saying, how do we achieve parity in responses and sanctions where illegalities are committed both by the police and the public? Speedy, expeditious action against both. How do we balance that, Charles?
You know, I have said very clearly that the police must be put to account. And for your information, in many families you find there is one person only who is a policeman. I have children, I have a wife, I have family members that must be protected by the police. And what is most important is that we have institutions that have been mandated with putting police to accountability. And I've just told you, one of it is the Independent Police Oversight Authority. I've not seen any of you asking Mr. Mashari Anjeru how far he has gone with his investigations. We have an internal affairs unit that is dealing with that. Because we want to be, as much as you want to see us to take action against officers, you must remember that this officer, when he was doing this, he was on duty that he was assigned to. And for that reason, if he's found to have, like for example, those officers who killed some girl in Kwale, they went through a process. They were arrested. They were taken to court. They have been convicted. And we have many officers who have been convicted of the same, of many other offenses. So what we are saying, we are a society. And what we are saying is police is the institution that is responsible for protecting your lives. And every time, if there is a mistake, don't give a blanket condemnation on police. There are other officers who are very diligent. There's even that officer who went there and told his colleague, please don't. And then you are condemning them. Police, you know, when you say police, you are telling my daughter and my son, your father. Are you getting that? What we are saying is, let us... No one is actually...
By the way, the intention is not to condemn everybody. Because what you're saying, everybody knows that diligent police officers who do their work properly, and it's evident.
Let me tell you...
The only problem is that they are in uniform. That's why they call them police.
We have a responsibility. And we know that. And in fact, we should be beyond the public standards. That is what we are.
There's also no blanket.
And I know many Kenyans only remember police when they are in trouble.
But there's also no blanket. You say there's no blanket condemnation.
No.
There should also not be blanket, support or justification for what the police.
No, we are not supposed to. We are a civil society. We have moved so far as a country. We're taking a short break now. We're taking a short break now. Of course, there's still more we're going to talk about. We're going to interrogate the other side, because there's also been, and especially from the police, accusations that the public have been using, going beyond the limits. For example, Nancy here says, I saw over 10 police officers with injuries in Siaya. Who hurt them and who is defending them? Court should discipline their supporters. And more of us, somebody says, journalists behave like greedy politicians. They want to justify the criminals who injure police. So let them know the stand of the police. Keep talking to us on 22422 on Twitter using the hashtag Cheche. We'll be back after the short break.